I'm a former substitute.
Don't worry, it's multiple choice.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Natalie Reilly out in Encinitas, California, and I am so happy to be here. I'm getting feedback. I think I'm getting feedback because of you.
Oops.
Okay, maybe not. Okay, so I am so excited to be here. Like I was saying earlier, Ryan and I met a few years ago when I was beginning my Love Note mission. He was one of the first Love Note recipients that I ever left a note on his car. I was down in Gilbert, Arizona, and I was going to the grocery store, parked next to him, and I saw that he had a firefighter sticker on the back of his window, left a note on his truck, went in and grabbed whatever I got, and then took off. And a little while later, he reached out, and we've been friends ever since. And because he's been such a proponent for my mission and for me, and coming with me to speak at schools and businesses, I am just so happy to be able to return the favor and do what I can to help him with his mission. Before we start, let's go around the room and introduce ourselves. And when you introduce who you are in just a few words, I don't want to take up too much time because I really do want you all to meet Ryan and talk with him. But the theme is around his book is accountability. And we live in a world where we as a culture hold everyone's feet to the fire, but our own, particularly online. We like to point fingers. So in that vein, in just a few words, how do you hold yourself accountable in your personal and professional life? David Perez?
Wow, pleasure of going first on that one. For those that don't know me, I am a retired police officer from New Jersey, and I've been part of Sarah's platform for like a year and a half now, and grateful for every minute of it and the courage that this platform has given me to refine my voice. So thank you for that. And so what holds me accountable professionally, now that I'm retired and have to work for myself, what holds me accountable is keeping notes and journaling, not journaling, but a gratitude notebook. So I write in my gratitude notebook every day for the things that I'm grateful for, and turning, lemons into lemonade essentially for things that didn't go right on the day, and trying to find ways that those what happened to me moments are what happened for me moments. So that's how I hold myself accountable, to just keep staying positive and moving forward. And I guess it kind of crosses over into the personal side too. But my wife holds me accountable. Let's just be clear and honest about that. Without her, she keeps me on track. So, but writing things down holds me accountable because then they're tangible.
Thank you. Todd?
Todd Stewart, in Iowa, injury retired firefighter and search and rescue operator from Washington State, PTSI survivor, barely. Professionally, I'm an IT guy, and my customers and my relationship and the feedback I get from them is what holds me accountable professionally. Personally, I have a group of men, spiritual warriors that I spend a lot of time with in God's word. And I think the term iron sharpens iron applies there. And their honesty and spirit-filled advice and mentorship is what keeps me accountable personally.
Thank you, Todd. Sarah?
Yeah, Sarah Carell, wife and mother of 4 boys, and part of the tribe here in creating the power of our story. I would say I definitely have personal accountability. I think with my husband, I have a walking partner who is actually a coach. You probably know her, Pam. We get together every week. I have a prayer partner. We pray a couple times in every week. And then I have a group of women that I see every Sunday. Our families get together. We've done this for probably 17 years. So I have a lot of people in my personal life, and we're very open. And then professionally, well, this is what I do. It's volunteer, but I think what keeps me accountable is I feel very passionate about supporting. And so I want to make sure that I'm on the ball for the people who come and create a very safe, loving network here to heal. So that desire, I think it brings a lot of accountability. And then I get help too. I get a lot of help. So it's good.
Thank you, Sarah. Daniel?
Daniel Torres here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. Retired Army MP, did 21 years. Former federal Leo, and currently work for the Arizona Department of Corrections. I think personally, myself is like David said, like a goals list or a task list, writing things down and making sure that I accomplish those, or I have a plan to accomplish those that I didn't. Also personally, my lovely wife, Melissa, some of you have met, keeps me on the straight and narrow for the most part. And professionally, I think I just check myself to make sure that I'm humble in what I do, and that I'm treating everyone that I come in contact with, especially in the Department of Corrections. A lot of people have a different view of our incarcerated, but I view everybody as a human being, and just treating everybody with dignity and respect.
Thank you. Goodell?
Hey, Goodell Olivas, currently federal Leo, retired Navy, in the aviation field, and spec ops side. That's a great question. I'm gonna say that besides scripture, besides God, besides my spiritual side, and finding everything there, which is technically number one, it's being taking the responsibility and owning the fact that you're a cornerstone, or that I'm considered a cornerstone. And that's something that I don't take lightly, because it means a cornerstone for family, for people in my church and people at work, and it doesn't always end well, as I'm obviously going through stuff now, but being the cornerstone, even there, no matter the tribulations, no matter what happens, keep in the fight, knowing that you're still that cornerstone, and the accountability, it just goes along with it, and just having this great bunch of folks right here to hold you, also lift you up, when accountability may not be there, or sometimes not even be the funnest of things, right, to even go back and consider yourself being held accountable by others, or by something that you think you did wrong, or what you could do, or something, so yeah, long-winded answer there, but I guess that's my biggest one.
Thank you. Chris?
Well, to be honest, my inspiration is my accountability. And since I'm not really the co-host, but I'm the co-director for tonight's show, Natalie's inspiration is what pretty much inspires me to maintain my personal life the way I'm supposed to, and my now new professional venture that I've embarked upon, which is a little more than I thought it was going to be. So that's all it is for me, inspiration. So
Thank you. Brenda?
Oh boy. So I'm Brenda, and I've been a nurse 35 years. I know I don't look it, but 35 years. And I've worked as a case manager. I've kind of done every department there is. I am a former board member for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Formerly worked with a project called Project 2025. Which was to lower suicide rates 20% by 2025. And the reason I got involved with that is because I have a friend and coworker who took her life, as well as, you know, patients throughout the years, different people that I know. So that's how I got involved with that. I also work with, I guess it's arts and entertainment. I do a lot of event planning and working with producers and fun stuff to kind of balance out the nurse stuff. But I think my inspiration for everything and where I keep it focused is my faith. You know, I believe in the do unto others, and what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And because I've worked so many different aspects of the spectrum with patients and people in the lower economic profile, as well as those in the higher end profile, you know, the common theme, you know, everybody deserves to be treated the right way. And that goes back to, you know, do unto others. And because I personally have health issues, I've learned to see the spectrum from the patient side as well as the nurse side. And again, you know, it's do unto others and with my faith. And that's what holds me accountable to myself, both personally and professionally. And when I get a little bit too big for my britches, and as my friend says, I turn into Miss Diva. You know, I have a few people that are really close in my circle that kind of tell me, girl, you know, take a few steps back, put yourself in check. And if they don't do it, then, you know, Father Ed, when Father Ed sees me missing, Father Ed starts looking for me, and Father Ed kind of, you know, keeps me in check with different things because of the work that I do. You know, it gets tough sometimes. So that's where I hold my own self accountable for everything.
Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
Bobby Lediger. I'm retired from, I was in the Navy for a few years, active duty and MP, and then I was a U.S. Marshal. And then I'll leave the last part out for the book. To be held accountable, I think, you know what, one of the things that I'll relate it to all you guys here, it's the first time I spoke with you all, and it's got to be credit to Dave for, you know, the straightforward questions. And you have to be honest because people can see it in your eyes if you're lying or you're bullshitting or whatever. And you know, I love going into debates and being questioned about things, you know, and you guys listened to what I had to say and heard it, and then, you know, drilled me with questions, and I loved it. It was great. So, you know, you tell the truth, and I'm an honest person. I'm a truth teller. You know, I have empathy for people, and you try to help people. And, you know, just tonight on TV, I live in Florida now, so on TV is the movie Black Hawk Down. And I think it's the most realistic movie for military and, you know, camaraderie and teamwork and, you know, loving your brother and never giving up. And I mean, every time I watch the movie, I cry. I personally know guys who were there, and it kills me. And, you know, you just stay with it. And, you know, meeting you guys have saved my life. I mean, some of you know a lot more than others, but, you know, having people like you all who, you know, we don't even really know, but to listen and help each other, you know, keeps you grounded and gets you through the day. And, you know, just to make a quote, you know, what keeps me going, and I'll throw it out there, Natalie, because I love saying it, is that, you know, it's, I gotta buy milk on the way home because my wife Roseanne didn't buy it. So like, I gotta live, I got something to live for. And as silly as that is, it helps you. And I think that's what it is. It's just, don't be so serious, but be serious. So that's it.
Thank you. Chris Gregario.
Good evening. My name is Chris Gregorio. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend to the many, and I happen to be a 18-year police officer and a 24-year reserve soldier. First of all, I'd like to say that I don't think that we have credibility without accountability. So I thrive on that. I look for that. I embrace my failures because I fail many times a day, as I think most of us do. And I don't discount, but don't latch on to my successes. I really cling on to my failures because that's where I learn. And with every failure or some fire that I have to walk through is another ability for me to connect and reach somebody else that may be walking through a fire that they're struggling with. And like everybody else has said, my fantastic wife also keeps me accountable along with my kids. So I have to be true to myself. Thanks.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you. I'm Paul Curtis. I'm a Navy vet, law enforcement officer. And there is one simple thing that keeps me accountable. Every time there's an issue, I look directly at my wife and I say, "Yes, ma'am." And happy wife, happy life. But I'm being a little facetious here. Some of you know that's not completely true. But what I do is I try to look at where I was yesterday versus where I am today. And my goal each day is to put a smile on somebody's face, to encourage them in the things that they're passionate about, and to inspire them to want to help others. And if I have done that as an old retired guy, I'm pretty comfortable with how I live my life and the accountability that goes with that. I also, with each passing day, compare myself to yesterday and say, what have I done to improve myself today? And if I can't write something down, it's not time to go to bed yet, because there's work to be done. And so that's literally how I do it.
That's good. Thank you, Paul. Terry?
Terry Peters, retired Leo, 30 plus years in Massachusetts. As far as accountability, I believe that, well, I know I'm extremely honest. I have a very high level of integrity. I know I'm humble, authentic, and empathetic with other individuals. I'm also a strong believer that every time we point the finger at somebody else's, there's always three pointing right back at us. And owning your own shit and taking a look at what you've brought to the table and growing through it is one way that I've held myself accountable moving forward and growing and developing in my own journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. Personally, I learned at a very young age that when you told the truth, things could move on smoothly. People would forgive you and move on. But if you didn't own up to it, it just dragged out and it eventually just made me miserable. And so that's what I know of accountability.
When you get old, you find out that if you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said.
Exactly.
And for some of us, memory isn't all that hot these days.
Yeah, and
so,
people can accept the truth if you're honest, and I think you do build a little bit of credibility when you can own up to your mistakes.
And you don't have to be brutal about it either.
Exactly.
Just,
so without further ado, there's a train going by. With Ryan, you don't have, I'm going to read this because I don't want to make a mistake here. You don't have to look any further than his life and his family to know that he's the real deal. He's the man who will not ask anything of you that he is not first willing to do himself, which is, to me, the markings of a leader. When Ryan told me about the idea for this book and its message, I told him it was going to be a hard sell, and not just for the fire service. For one, nobody likes change, least of all long-standing organized traditions. And harder still, nobody likes to look deep inside themselves to make necessary changes to be better, personally and professionally. It's just easier to reassign the blame. Ryan's message reminds me of a quote from the movie Moneyball, when the Boston Red Sox owner tells Brad Pitt's character, the first one through the wall always gets bloody. And that's what I think of when I think of Ryan in this book and this message. And that's why I love him so much. Ryan is a good guy to have in your corner. He's the guy you want in your corner if you want to be better and if you don't mind getting bloody. So with that, Ryan Rodriquez.
Oh, let's get bloody. I think that was let's just end it, guys. Let's just end it right there. I think that's pretty much all that needs to be said. Thank you, Natalie, so much. That was amazing. So I feel personally that understanding comes through curiosity. So by nature, I ask a lot of questions. Even as a paramedic, I ask a lot of questions. I have to show up. I ask questions. What's your name? When's your birthday? Okay, so-and-so, what brings me here today? That's given if they're awake and talking, right? If they're conscious, if they can actually respond to the questions I'm asking them. But from there, it goes to just another series of questions. I seek to understand my patient. I seek to understand what it is that's ailing them so I can help formulate a strategy to take care of them or give them the proper treatment that they need. So personally, in regards to answering this accountability question, like I said, I'm inquisitive by nature. And so I tend to turn that mirror on myself. I ask myself, I talked a little bit about this earlier, Sarah, in that you kind of compartmentalize as first responders, military, you kind of compartmentalize yourself, which is fine. But once you start losing yourself among those compartments, that's where the real trouble starts kicking up. But so I like to ask myself questions in regards to those compartments. For example, when it comes to my profession, am I the firefighter I would want showing up to my house? Am I in shape or am I out of shape? Do I have a lot of mental stuff going on or do I need to shore that up? What is it that I need to shore up or improve on to honestly answer that question? I am the firefighter I would want showing up to my house in an emergency. And the same goes for fatherhood. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I teach at the college. I'm now an author. Like I ask myself the question in all of those categories, am I the father that I wish I would have had? Am I the husband that my wife deserves? And if there's maybe a no, or maybe there's something I need to work on, well, guess what's getting written down on paper? And that's just it. And a couple of you guys mentioned making a list, and actually that's good that you talked about that. That was something that I'll talk about a little bit later. But in regards to the accountability question, that's how I tend to keep myself in check. I ask myself the question, and it's the hard questions, really. And just like Natalie said, change is hard. And if it's anything I've learned in my close to 20 years in the fire service, it's that we hate two things. We hate change and the way things are. And so it's like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so asking those questions helps me guide myself through that minefield. Is this where I just go for it? You guys just want me to go for it? Okay. I'm going to give you three big ideas that I talk about in the book. And the book's titled Own It, Build a Fire Service Culture of Accountability or Trust and Integrity through Accountability. And in my time in the fire service, being a paramedic, being a firefighter, there has not been a moment where Like I don't have my eyes open and I'm observing. I'm observing the environments I'm in, the people I'm on a crew with. I want to make sure that I'm making observations so I can adjust accordingly. And it's kind of like that that adage, adapt and overcome, right? And everyone in law enforcement and in the military and fire service, we understand you adapt and you overcome. Like we have a mission to accomplish, period. The fire doesn't care how tired you are. You know, these people that need help, they don't care that you got the rumbly tummy. You got to dial it in and you got to answer the call and do your job, period. Like you don't get to show up on scene and be like, you know what, I'm not really feeling this right now. No, it's not an option. So in every observation that I've made, I keep a journal. I keep a very active journal, and I've just made little notes throughout the years of little things that kind of irked me, things that I made notation on in regards to things I've learned or observations I've made. And in every single, I'm not exaggerating, every single issue that I have seen in the fire service, in my experience, every single negative issue can be traced back to accountability in some way. Every single one of them. And, there's a couple of elements that I specifically focus on, and that's integrity and trust. And through building those things, you can establish accountability, or they all kind of work in conjunction. And that's what I talk about in the book. So let me kind of introduce you to this idea of triage, or the 360 report. So when we get dispatched on like a major motor vehicle accident, or let's say a structure fire, we are getting out, we're answering the call, right? We get on scene and we take a 360 walk around the vehicle to get a good perspective. We want to make sure we get all angles, right? And the same goes for structure fire, within reason. If it's a big Lowe's, obviously I'm not walking around the Lowe's. But if it's like a single story residence, I'm going to get out, I'm going to give my report, and then I'm going to let everybody know that's coming, hey, 360 report to follow. I'm going to get out, I'm going to walk around, I'm going to see if there's anything that we need to adapt to, and I'm going to make a decision from there whether or not we're going to maintain the strategy or we're going to change things up. And then I get back on the radio and I give a report. But I don't give that report until I've gotten a good perspective, right? And so just like you all have shared just moments ago, you all have given your perspective on accountability and how you hold yourselves accountable. And this, just by simply providing that perspective, you're giving me and everybody here a different view in regards to that topic. So now if we cut this meeting short right now, we already have value that we've shared with each other and that we've provided. We've provided everybody a different view of that thing. So that really was the goal in writing this book, is to provide perspective, just merely observations that I've made and some suggestions for correcting or course correcting. Because honestly, I'm going to be 100% real with you right now. I've been in the fire service. I've worked for 2 different fire service organizations, one small and rural and one larger and metropolitan. And I feel like the brotherhood that I was promised is just not there. I don't know if it was and it just disappeared, but I don't know if it's the complacency of the thing, but it's kind of like I was sold a bill of goods. And I'm trying to foster that through this book. I'm trying to course correct and get us back on track to that brotherhood that I really wanted and that I still want. Even near the end of my career, I'm trying to leave that legacy. So 3 big ideas from the book. First off is that I shared how we tackle problems on the fire ground and even on an EMS scene. So we show up and we first identify the problem. And that's where the questions come in when it comes to EMS, asking my patient questions. I want to identify the problem. Why am I here? Why did you call 911? And if it's a structure fire, obviously the fire is the problem, right? So that's a pretty good given. So we identify the problem, number 1. Number 2, we formulate a strategy. So if the patient's having a heart attack, I don't really care about what their blood sugar is right now. Like that can come down the road, right? That's minutia. That doesn't really matter. So I formulate a strategy based on the complaint. We formulate strategy based on how the fire is behaving. Then we take action on that strategy. We take action on that strategy, and then we observe our results and we make adjustments as needed. Right now, everybody who's been in the military or law enforcement and the fire service, and even Brenda, you've been in the nursing field for, you said 35 years. You understand that you formulate your strategy, you identify your problem, right? And this is natural to us. But the crazy part is this modality is not natural to the majority of people walking around out there. And the real crazy thing is that when you break it down and when you present someone with this modality of identifying the problem, formulating the strategy, taking action, and making adjustments along the way, it's amazing how they naturally do it in their role of firefighter or law enforcement. But when you apply it to any other problem, it just doesn't occur to them. And so that was my goal with sharing that modality, is that regardless of the problem that you're facing, whether it's a 911 call, whether it's, your kids are fighting, or whether it's your spouse is expressing a struggle that they're having, we want to identify the problem, formulate a strategy, and take action, making adjustments along the way. And I understand that when it comes to spouses, things could be a little bit different. I don't know if you guys have seen the It's Not About the Nail video, but it's a pretty popular video. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's the whole thing about, I don't need you to fix it. I just need to talk about it. And sometimes just listening is the strategy. Identify the problem, formulate a strategy, take action, and make adjustments along the way, right? Adapt and overcome. So that's idea number one. A big idea number two was this idea of integrity. So I have this vision of what integrity means personally, and it's that you do what you say you're going to do. And if you're not willing to do that thing, don't tell someone you're willing to do that thing, right? There's a joke around the firehouse like, oh, you're only on your third marriage, and it's like this big joke. Fortunately, I'm only on my first, and that's how I plan to keep it. But the idea is that you do what you say you're going to do. If you're not interested in being in a relationship, don't tell somebody you are, right? That's just one example. But so integrity to me, you do what you say you're going to do. And if you're not willing to do that thing, then don't say you're going to do that thing. But I like to take it a little bit further in that integrity, when it comes to like personal integrity, is I have this ideal of where I want to be, right? And then I have to take a look at myself and find out where I'm at. And maybe this is like the personal trainer in me, or the pure fitness trainer in me that's speaking this way, because it's like what gets measured gets improved, period. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care what it is you're measuring. If you don't have a baseline, there's no way you can measure progress. There's no way you can measure improvement. And I mean, it's literally called a baseline set of vitals. When we go to someone's house on an EMS scene and we respond to a medical emergency, we get a baseline set of vitals so that we know where we're starting, and then we can take action towards fixing the issue, and we can measure whether or not what we're doing is working, or we need to make some adjustments and change our modality. So for me, I view integrity as where I'm at versus where I want to be. And it's up to me to close that integrity gap from where I am, from where I want to be. And through that, we can set goals, we can establish ideals, different things like that. But step one, like I said, is doing what you say you're going to do. And I talk about that in the book, and I give some examples, some just anecdotal examples. But one of the things that I really think helps build trust specifically is not just doing what you say you're going to do, because that naturally inherently establishes you as someone that people can trust on a basic level, right? But I kind of want to be that guy that people seek out. I want to be that one that people seek out because they actively know, I want to be the one that's in their mind. Oh, that guy, I know I can trust him. I know he's going to get it done. I know I can trust him to do the thing. And how I elevate that very basic level of integrity is over delivering. No matter what it is I'm doing, I'm going to over deliver. If someone asks me to, do any little menial task, I'm going to over deliver. So regardless of if I'm doing chores, nightly chores at the station, and I break out the vacuum, I'm not just going to vacuum my room. I'm going to vacuum everybody's bunk room. That's an example of over delivering, adding value, and establishing yourself as someone who is willing to do that extra thing and stand out as trustworthy. One of the other things is for example, the other night I ran on a call, and it was an EMS call, and the person that needed medical attention was going into a respiratory failure situation. And I wound up transporting him to the ER, and through my treatments, I was able to get them back to a conscious state, and they were awake and talking. By the time we got to the hospital, I couldn't shut her up, but that was a good sign, right? That's a good thing in the EMS world. So I go there, and on scene, I thanked my crew. I thanked them individually. Hey, thanks, Jim, for getting that IV. Thanks, Joe, for making sure we got the ambulance here on time. I want to go out of my way to make sure that these people are being seen. So I ride into the hospital, me and the ambulance crew, and my engine crew stays on scene and kind of cleans up and does whatever. But I get to the hospital, and I go to the EMS room. And for those of you in fire, you understand that they have a nice little, if you're lucky, they have a nice little EMS room where you can get some snacks, right? And this hospital is a little bit higher end with their snacks. They have a freezer with a bunch of different ice cream bars. So I grabbed one for everyone on my crew. Now, I didn't have to do that, but this was a way I could add value. This was a way I could over deliver, and to let those people know on my crew that I value them, right? Now, maybe I'm setting a dangerous precedent in that they expect ice cream every time I ride into the hospital. I don't know. But the idea remains that I'm adding value, and that's the key. So number 3, the last big idea that I wanted to talk about is where integrity starts. And ultimately, a few of you had mentioned this, integrity starts with you, period. Are you living up to the things that are expected of you? Are you living up to the promises that you're making? Is really the questions that need to be answered. One of the tools that I use personally to maintain a level of integrity with myself is that I use what's called a hot list. Now, this is a little more than just, this is a little more than just a to-do list, okay? So a to-do list is like getting groceries, right? I need to make sure I pick up the dry cleaning. I need to get milk, this and that. But a hot list are 3 to 5 things that you need to do to move yourself forward. These are 3 to 5 things that are life-changing, that are going to move you forward in life. Now, is buying milk going to move you forward in life? Not necessarily. So this is what's going to help differentiate you between a regular to-do list or shopping list versus what I call the hot list. And it's those things that are going to help you close that integrity gap that I just talked about on big idea number 2, right? So the questions you ask yourself, where am I? Where do I need to be? So let me give an example. If I want to lose 10 pounds, right? I need to make sure that I formulate a strategy or identify the problem, right? I feel like I'm overweight and I need to lose 10 pounds. Formulate a strategy. All right, I'm going to work out at least 20 minutes every day. No excuses, every day. And then I'm going to take action on that thing, making adjustments along the way. So on my hot list would go something like work out 20 minutes today, right? Now I could even get more specific. And the more, honestly, when it comes to goal setting, the more specific, the better. But let's just keep it work out 20 minutes a day. So I've done that. Let's say I've done that for an entire quarter. Or let's say just a month even, not even a quarter. Let's say I've done that for just a month. Scientific studies show that it takes 28 to 30 days to establish a habit, good or bad. 28 to 30 days. So if you can do this for a month, it now becomes a part of your lifestyle. So now this thing working out 20 minutes a day doesn't just stay on your hot list. That can kind of fall off your hot list because now it's a habit. And now it's just something a part of you, right? It's a part of your lifestyle that you're living. And let me use a different example as well. So that's just like a physical ramification, right? A physical aspect. Let's say you want to improve your spirituality or feel closer to God. Let's talk about that. So on your hot list, let's put something on there that you're not doing every day that you could do. So let's say I want to pray every day. Just once, at least just once, I want to say a prayer every day. So I write that down, right? And I like to write it down because honestly, writing it down is going to hold you more accountable. Seeing it on that paper. You can put it on your phone too, put a little reminder on there. I've got different strategies for that too with the clients that I talk to, but you want to make sure that it's visible to you, right? If it's staring you in the face, it's hard to ignore. So let's say you do that and you check off that box and you're doing that every day for 28 to 30 days. Now it becomes a part of your lifestyle. And so now these things that become habits and a part of your lifestyle, it doesn't necessarily need to continue to be on your hot list, right? Because like I said, 3 to 5 things at the most, because the human brain can only handle about 3 to 5 things at a time, can only remember about 3 to 5 things. Once it gets beyond that, it becomes more complicated. People start losing interest. People just don't care. So that's where the 3 to 5 things come in. Personally, I like to keep it to 3 because the less boundaries you can put between you and taking action, the better. So basically, this integrity list or this hot list helps you maintain that personal integrity, helps you close that integrity gap from where you are to where you want to be. And through that action, you are building your integrity. When you are living these principles, you know, you're working on your hot list, you're closing that integrity gap. People are going to notice. People are going to notice it because the natural byproduct of that is you living this lifestyle. Your lifestyle changes, right? People begin to trust that you're going to do these things. They see you working out, let's say, for example. They see you working out, and then they notice that about you. Well, that's now a part of you. And when that standard has been established, well, now it's time to swap that out for something else on your hot list. But I'm trying to narrow this down in regards to you've got this big idea, right, of how to handle problems. And we're trying to build trust and integrity through that accountability. And honestly, that, like I said, that integrity starts with you. Through that hot list, you're closing your integrity gap. And as a natural byproduct, you're becoming a person of integrity. Once that integrity gap is closed, you're showing the people around you that they can trust you. And if you want to amp it up, amplify it a little bit, always over deliver. But those are 3 basic ideas from the book actionable steps that we can take that will help us build that culture of trust and integrity through active accountability. We do it on our basic level, and then it spreads to our crew, it spreads to the people around us, and then it can spread to the organization. Now, I specifically have like the focus in the fire service in particular, but these principles can be applied to your business and they can be applied to your family. And when I work one-on-one with clients in regards to this specific modality and the coaching that I do, I approach it in a quarterly manner. We approach their goals quarterly. And I have 4 specific categories that I have them identify that maybe they're lacking in integrity in within themselves. And where do they want to close that integrity gap based on these 4 categories. But that's 3 basic ideas, 3 big ideas from the book that I thought I'd share with you guys tonight. Thank you guys for letting me come on and talk about the book. It was just released last Monday. So it's been very well received. I've been on a few different bestseller lists. So that was really surprising and reaffirming that people are out there, people are looking for this. So that's really good. I was wondering if any of you had any questions or wanted to talk about anything specific in regards to anything that I mentioned.
Todd?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hey, thanks for sharing all that, brother. First off, I can't tell you how sad it makes me feel that you stated that you didn't find that brotherhood that you had been told so much about. Now, I joined the department in 1982. And that brotherhood was definitely a huge part of my life as a firefighter. And I guess the question I have is, so my career ended with a dive through a staircase in a house fire. And it was interesting, of all the things that went through my mind as that stairway fell out from underneath me. And I was, we were in a split level, fire had extended into the basement that we really didn't realize how extensive it was. And I was on the nozzle of the second hose up the stairs, and and the stair caved in, and I was hung up by my armpits and my SCBA tank. And the first thing that ran through my mind is, oh, I'm going to die. My feet were getting pretty hot. But the very next thought was, no, my brothers are going to come out and they're going to get me. And they did. And that whole stairway was ready to cave in. And 2 of my brothers from Engine 4 came out there and hauled me up out of there. And we ended up putting the fire out. Like you say, you adapt. My back was screwed, but we really didn't have a way out of that house other than putting the fire out. But I guess my question is, do you feel like in that, I mean, there was no thought about a survivability profile. Can we make it out on that stairway and get Todd? They just came out and did it because that's what we did for each other. Do you feel like that's there in your department, that if you were in a similar situation, that there would just be that, no, we're going to get him, we're going to get this done? You feel that that's there?
Yeah, I feel like we train together, right? And we do all these things. And when it comes time to perform, we can perform our tasks. We can do our jobs. The guys that I've worked with who've been on since basically I was born in 81. And there was a guy who just retired last year, 2 years ago. And he had been on since the 81. he would openly tell me everything has changed. He said it was not like this when I started. It was, he told me, like, because I asked him, like I said, I'm very inquisitive and I wanted his perspective because he's been in the game a long time. And I was like, has it always been like this? Or was there times where like you would go to each other's houses and celebrate each other's kids' birthdays, and was there that? And he was like, yeah, there was that. He's like, it's not here anymore. And I thought maybe it was just my organization, but the more I talk about this and the more I reach out to other people in other organizations, the more they're like, yeah, we are not feeling it. Like, we do not feel it. And it's really sad. It's like, I trust you with my life, but I don't trust you with my wife. And we have had literal examples of how that has destroyed trust among our community, among our fire service community. And these people, there's a huge sense of cronyism right now that's permeating particularly my organization and a few others that I can think off the top of my head, that this type of behavior, these are the people that get promoted. And so it's very difficult to keep that fire lit. But hence the name of the podcast that I host right here, Ignited, right? I try to keep that flame alive. And the goal is to light the spark, stoke the flame, and pass the torch. And it's basically trying to leave that brotherhood that I wish I had, or created among my crew, at the very least among my crew. So unfortunately, personally, I do not feel like that brotherhood exists. I mean, like I said, when it comes time to perform, I feel like it'll happen. But again, it's like, I can trust you with my life, but I can't trust you with my wife, unfortunately.
Thank you. Paul?
Thanks.
Paul?
What you got, Paul?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. First, in the Marine Corps, they refer to it as improvise, adapt, and overcome. And that doesn't leave a lot of margin for exceptions. But for those of you who may have been to the Naval Academy, the wall on the left side of the main entrance to the Bancroft Hall says, "I do not lie, cheat, steal," and I added gossip, and I do not abide those who do. And that hopefully is pretty clear. And the other comment that I have is that I find that trust arises out of trustworthiness. And by that, I mean, the trust comes from each of us, the trustworthiness does. And the relationship is one of trust between two people known to be trustworthy to each other. And that can expand in myriad different directions. And I'll give you an interesting example, and I think that I will get agreement on this. When I met Chris Gregorio, I knew without any reservation, without any hesitation, this is a guy that I would go into combat with. This is a guy who I could trust completely. And I don't feel that way very often. I had police officers I worked with that I didn't have that level of trust for. But it comes out of the trustworthiness. And, it's, for me, it's simple. You do the right thing and you say the right things and you keep your agreements with other people. Because if you don't, life ceases until something changes. And that trustworthiness is what is going to earn you the right to have trust in others. And if you don't believe me, just remember some of the people that you've arrested in your life that you know you wouldn't invite to dinner, and you certainly wouldn't hang around with on the streets. And thug life is a perfect example of that. And, so those are my thoughts, and I appreciate, Ryan, that you spent the time and went to the trouble to go through the parts of your book. I'm in the process of reading it as well, and would also like to get an autograph from you on my Kindle. Yes.
I'll use that. Yeah, I'll use that permanent marker. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, Paul.
Yeah.
You know, and we train together. We physically train together. Obviously, like in the military, the same thing happens, and in the police academy, the same thing happens. We physically train together, and so we build that trust in that I can trust you to perform your job skills. Where I feel like we're failing is that we don't quote unquote train enough with each other to be interpersonal and to build our interpersonal relationships. So we have a lot of silos happening. We have a lot of isolation happening. And I feel unfortunately like that's being reflected in the suicide numbers among first responders, which in 2017, the first responder suicides outnumbered line of duty deaths for the first time ever. And sadly, like the trend is increasing. And it's through this isolation that's happening, this lack of connecting with each other, that it's kind of propagating this idea. There's only a few firehouses left in the modern fire service where we have communal bunk rooms. The only times we typically see each other are when we eat lunch and dinner or eat meals, and then when we go on calls. And when we're done with these calls, we split up and we go to our bunk rooms, our individual bunk rooms, and we kind of isolate. And I think that's one of the big things that's causing this, you know, figurative and literal isolation of everyone. And we're not effectively able to connect with each other on the level that we should be to build that interpersonal trust, not just trust that you can perform your job, but the interpersonal trust to shore up that other side.
Ryan, do you have roll calls like the police department does?
I'm not sure what that is.
That's where I get my platoon of men and we go into a roll call room and we brief on what has occurred in the previous shift, what's going on around town, what to be on the lookout for. If there are any hot wanted posters, those go out, that kind of thing. And then we take off and go out in the field.
Yeah, so we'll have a daily brief, like the captain everybody will get together. Shift is at 0700 every morning. Well, every 2 days, because I do a 4896, which is awesome. I love the schedule. But we do shift change at 0700. And the captain, you know, we'll sit down and we'll do our truck checks. And then the captain will be like, all right, well, this is what we have going on this shift. The off-coming shift said these things needed to be addressed, and this is what we'll do. If we have any training, he'll let us know. But when it comes to like debriefing on like calls or whatever, we typically are very reactionary, which is crazy to me, how reactionary we are. You know, by nature, our job is that we respond to calls as they happen. When a call happens, then or when a bad thing happens, then we get toned out and we go to the call, right? But we're labeled as first responders, not as first reactors. But too often within the walls of the firehouse, in my experience, we simply are reacting to things. We're not responding to things appropriately. We tend to be knee jerk, or we don't take into consideration, again, interpersonal skills. And oftentimes that just goes ignored. And so a lot of, you know, people are struggling with debriefing from these calls that are going on, and it's taking a toll, unfortunately.
Thank you. Brenda? Brenda?
Sorry, I had to unmute my mic. Just a couple things. You had mentioned about over delivering and giving 100%. I think that's one thing, like, as far as nurses, as far as me holding myself accountability in my profession, and my personal too, is that, I always gave 110%. At that moment, that patient deserved the very best of me. Whatever was going on outside of work, personal, didn't belong there. I needed to take care of my patient at that minute and what they needed. And I know you said, it's the simple things, going out of your way. I mentioned earlier that, I have some health issues, and, I'm now a patient. So I've been able to see things from both sides, the professional side as well as the personal side. And it's very difficult to give up control and be a patient
Right. Yeah.
I want to run things, but, I
Yeah,
had
we
to
are the worst patients.
back up. Nurses are our own worst patient. But I know there was an occasion where, I had several before I got diagnosed, where I was taken to the emergency room and, through the ambulance, and, I gave a history, and, I had to say, they asked what you do, quick, simple questions to get an overview. And, the medic listened, and I happened to say, I'm a nurse. Okay, so I'm one of you guys, right? You're taking care of me.
Yeah.
I'm one of you. And so when we got to the hospital, I had been taken from, I wasn't at home. I was taken from somewhere else. So I had my big bag with me. And, they ask you, can you walk, so we can give you back the gurney. We can walk. I was dying in pain, but of course I'm a nurse. I'm going to walk. And so, there was a medic that was there with me that said, I'll walk you down the hallway. And, he let me walk. And another guy came and said, I got this, the one that had questioned me. And he took my bag from me and he carried it for me. And, it was that simple little gesture.
Yeah.
He knew I was a nurse. He knew I was one of you. You saw me walking down the hallway, carrying my bag. To this day, it still gets to me, and like,
Yeah,
listen, dude, you saw me, a girl carrying my bag, struggling, and you let me walk until one of your partners came and said, you know what, this girl's a nurse. Let's help her out.
Yeah.
Something
take care of her.
so simple to take care of me. And that's where you talk about accountability. That was just the basic human thing. You see a person, you take care of them. And it gets me to this day, because I wish I knew who that medic was. He's in my community. I'm sure he's nearby on runs, because, that's the area. But it's those simple little things that we as patients, as people, remember that nobody else took the time to think of that. And this one medic, it's basic humanity. And another time I had a medic, you take the call to the local hospital, and, he went over my history, and I have a complicated history. And I said, but all my providers are at this hospital. This is where I go. And that hospital was a 25-minute ride away. And he said, you know what, sweetheart, I'm going to take care of you, because he knew I was a nurse. And I'm sure he would do it for someone else, but, a little special treatment. And he called in and said, no, I want her to go to this hospital. And he got clearance to take me 25 minutes away. And that's the little extra, okay, I know I'm a nurse. He took care of me extra. He didn't have to. You could have dropped me at the local, because that was the closest to go on another run. But it's those simple little things. And again, I wish I knew who that medic was that did that 100%, that wasn't caught up in, it's just a job. You still have that humanity behind what's right is right. Let me give this person all of me. And those are the simple things that when I talk about, like, just give that extra. It's so freaking simple. When I think back of, you see, as a male, you see a female struggling, carrying a bag, you offer to help. And here I was in the medical, all these firemen standing around. And it took one to realize this is wrong. So that's where,
who have probably seen you before.
I'm sure. I mean, I've been around after how many years, you see people, but like, we don't talk to each other. We just, hey, I recognize you, but I don't know your name. I know I've seen you before somewhere, that kind of thing. But it was just so simple. Right. It was so simple. I mean, and I could tell you, I mean, I have PTSD over all this stuff, but, and the way I was treated with some things, but it was such a simple gesture. All these years later, it will still trigger me when I think of, like, wow, you did basic, decent human thing, but not everyone thinks of that. And I think that's where we forget, like, the things we do, it's you got to do this stuff from the heart. You just got to. I mean, I could go on a tangent, but that's where it lies.
Thank you,
That's
Brenda.
all.
Well, we call it health care and patient care, and oftentimes we forget that care part, right?
Exactly. I could go on a tangent. Of those that don't belong in the field and those that are just there for the patient. And, that's a whole other, and I've learned so much of that, being the patient, like, this person's just here for a paycheck. And, and I've, you talk about, what holds us accountable. I mean, I've cursed out physicians in the ER when I was a patient because, like, that's not how you treat patients, and that's not how you're going to treat me. But we shouldn't have to get to that point. As providers, it's our job to be there for our patients and others. 110%. So I'll quit my soapbox.
Agreed.
David?
Thank you. Ryan, you're a deep dude, brother. I love that. That's awesome.
I like big talk, not small talk.
Yeah, no, you're not only deep, you're an inspiration. And every time I've had the chance to talk with you, I've learned so much from you. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks, man.
I love the if I am the blank that blank deserves. Whether I'm the firefighter that the house fire deserves, or if I'm the paramedic that the patient deserves, or the husband that my wife deserves. I love that's such a simple phrase, and you can fill in the blanks with anything. And I definitely plan to revisit that one in my own head, because that's freaking awesome. The just like some other people have said, the brotherhood thing kind of stood out to me. And I put in the comments, video killed the radio star. Social media killed brotherhood in the firehouse and the police department.
Oh boy, yeah, it's true.
So if you're not going to give somebody else a like, even in person, they're going to be vengeful and push you out. And I think that's a lot of what's happened in emergency services. And it became self-isolating, like you had said, but I don't even know how to really articulate it appropriately, but it's the same thing on the law enforcement side. And at least where I was working here in New Jersey, when we went away from full civil service, where you didn't have to work or live in the town or the county in which you were going to serve, people were driving an hour to work or 2 hours to work. It also does not make for a good social setting. Nobody wants to hang out for choir practice after a midnight shift and they have an hour and a half ride home. It's just not going to happen. So I think that's part of it as well. And, it's when you go back to the social media side, everybody's looking for that friend, fake or not. And if you don't give them what they're looking for, they just push you out. And my example of that is my sergeant at the time had a house party. He was trying to bring that brotherhood back to his squad at least, and then maybe build it out from there. And every year, maybe twice a year, he had a house party. And my wife beat him at a washers tournament at his own house party, and it ended my career. He literally, I got back to me a couple weeks later that he was offended by her disrespect for not allowing him to win the washers tournament at his own backyard party, and he was going to take it out
in front of people.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
People are
Ego
nuts.
Ego's
And
the
that
enemy,
guy's
man.
now the
It's
chief
so
of
crazy.
police in that agency. So
Of
you can
course.
only imagine how that goes. So,
Dude, I could tell you stories. My last chief was under investigation for murder, but that's a whole different book.
I can't wait to hear that one on Audible again. I don't read. So, but yeah, no. So I get it, man. You're preaching to the choir here, and you're just such an insightful dude, and I really appreciate that. And the three concepts you've laid out, and I can't wait to read the book. Honestly, haven't ordered it yet. I'm still waiting for the Audible version, but I may have to order it in the meantime. But I just really appreciate you, and I think you're a special person that our society needs, that our community needs, that this group needs, and just thank you for all that you do to continue to move the ball forward.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
I
you,
would
brother.
share one brief thing, and David has a concept and a quote that is so important. He says, you must earn your badge every day. And those of us in law enforcement understand that and respect it a lot, but he captioned that, and I thought I would share that with you for whatever it's worth.
That's good.
Thank you for bringing that up, Paul. Full disclosure, I got that from the idea of the Navy SEAL community, that they earn their trident, obviously never given, but they have to keep that integrity that they earned that trident to begin with throughout the rest of their life, long into retirement, into wherever their life goes. And the Navy will come back and pull that, or the SEAL community will come back and pull that trident from them if they screw something up. So when I learned about that many years ago, I thought that was one of the coolest concepts ever. And speaking of accountability, like it's such a small material thing, but it represents something larger than life. And to have that tangible reminder every day to earn that every single day of your life, no matter where you are, I think is so important. Paul, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Let's
Sarah?
share one other brief thing with regard to that. And that is that the badge weighs nothing until you pin it on. Also very, very important to understand.
Sarah?
Thank you, Natalie. You're a great host, by the way, Natalie. I love your manner. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. And Ryan, I so appreciate you, because I can imagine how people feel that are around you, whether they say anything or not. I think we all know what it's like to have somebody that's right there that goes the extra mile, and who day in and day out shows who they are, that, you know what, you matter. What is right is much more important than maybe clicks, or, you know what I mean? That humility and that integrity of, I am going to do what's right in every situation. And of course, I'm not talking about perfection. None of us are, but
Right. Yeah.
my intention, right? I'm going to do what is right, and people trust that and they appreciate that. And yet, why in every arena now are these same conversations happening? You know, the fear and the ego and the judgment, and, you know, getting into self-protection. So I'm so encouraged tonight to hear your heart and your integrity. I feel the same way about the people on this call, because they want to be part of the solution, you know, on this planet. But it also hurts me. It hurts me that this is just going on way too much, that there is leadership that does not know how to lead, you know?
I know. Yeah.
Right. And I just, I'm very grateful for you. So I thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you for writing the book too.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm a big believer in show, don't tell, you know, being a good example, but the only people you're going to offend are those who aren't pulling their weight or not doing the same, you know? I had the opportunity to help edit the book. So I have some stories in mind that I thought you know, one of the things that stood out was one of the things you do to over deliver. And I love it, because I was raised that you never leave someone's house without making it better, or leave someone's life without making their life a little bit better. You were talking about when you return a rental car, you like clean it out, you detail it, you return it even better than the way you found it. But the one story that kind of made me laugh was the story about when you helped the guy with his laundry. Remember?
Yeah.
That was kind of a funny
Yeah.
story. That you could share that with the group.
Yeah. So it was actually when I had just gotten hired, I was the probie, and I thought I was really doing a great job. And I had never, you know, I didn't come from a legacy firefighter family. I am the first in my line to do this. And so my own family looks at me kind of weird. They don't understand what I do. They don't understand my schedule. So I was the probie and I was doing laundry. I needed to switch my stuff from the washer to the dryer. And again, this is very simple stuff, but it goes a long way. And I took the senior firefighter stuff out of the dryer, and I thought I was doing a great job. I put it on his bed. I put my stuff in the dryer, and fortunately, he came to me, and he fortunately was very gracious when he could have really reamed me. I didn't fold any of his stuff. I just put it in a big ball on his bed, and it just all of it was wrinkled. And so he came to me very graciously and was like, "Hey, man, I appreciate you taking my stuff out of the dryer. However, now it's all wrinkly. I have to iron it or, re-dry it or whatever. Just for future reference, it would go a long way, and it would show me the respect that the senior firefighter deserves, that you fold the clothes." And boy, I have carried that with me my whole career to the point where now I'm the senior firefighter and I have a probie on my crew who's still, obviously still on probation. And I just switched laundry the other day, and it was one of these natural byproducts that I got to serve him, down the chain. I took his laundry out, I folded it all up, I put it on his bed, and he was like blown away that I would do this to like the lowly probie. And it was a great manifestation. It was a great way for me to, pass that torch, to show that example of this is what you deserve. You're not just some, mopping, chore-ridden probie that we're all going to dog on. You're someone who earned this job just like I did. And I need to show you the respect that you deserve. And by doing that, he's going to take that forward. And he's already talked to me about it, how he's going to take that forward and show the people that he works with the respect that they deserve.
I just have to say that in my day, it wasn't Proby, it was FNG.
If a new guy. Yeah. We have Proby and then the booter.
That's what servant leadership is about.
Yeah.
What you did for
And to
that
me,
Proby.
honestly, to me, honestly, I've not seen any kind of leadership that I admire more than the servant leadership. And so that's it for me. To me, there's no other kind of leadership other than the servant leadership. But again, that's a whole other book, I think.
Yeah. You're on like 6 other books, buddy, in the last 10 minutes.
Man, you know what's crazy? I'm glad this is being recorded because I'm going to go back and watch it and be like, man, I blacked out during that whole thing. What were those golden gems that I had?
Chris, speaking of golden gems.
Hey, good segue.
Right on. I want to try to keep this positive if I can, but I know a lot of the issues that I dealt with on my particular agency were about arrogance and over competitiveness as well. And because I was never a big guy, and guys would look at me and you're like, you're 150 pounds. How can you possibly do this job? And it was one of those things where it got to the point where they were looking down on me because I didn't think I had the ability to do it. And I'm going, okay, it doesn't take a monster to do this. I mean, no offense, but I think it started turning into a situation where guys were just so, well, you can't do what I do because you don't look like me. You're not my size. You don't have this degree, or you're not on the SWAT team, or you don't have, and I'm going, okay, but I mean, does that make any difference? I mean, we're all here on the same team. We're here to support each other and not be competitive with each other. And don't get me wrong, there's some good-hearted ribbing going on and that kind of stuff, which is healthy. But to the point where you start questioning your abilities, it was tough. I mean, it was tough to be in that field and looked down upon by guys that I'm going to say it all loud, that a lot of times I just didn't have any respect for. Like, if you were more like, Ryan, I'd probably have more respect for you, but you're not. So and there was never any hesitation. Don't get me wrong. I would never, ever in a million years even think about it. But when it came time to get done, because cops, they always want to meet up in the middle and talk about it. It was one of those things where I didn't want to talk to anybody, and that became part of my isolation on my squad for quite a while, because it's like, well, I don't like you and I don't want to hang around and talk to you, so I'm gonna go and do my own thing, which was kind of a bad situation. So
Right. Yeah,
but
absolutely, man. I totally hear that. When I was on probation with the current agency that I'm on, I hold the record for longest probation, by the way. 2.5 years. My probation was 2.5 years in my current location due to bureaucracy and politics and all of that. And it was a gauntlet for me to survive that. But I did. But now it's like kind of this joke. I've got the longest standing probation in the department's history. But during probation we had a word of the day, and one of the we'd have to use, or I define the term, and then give an example of how it relates to the fire service. And one of those words was competition one day. And I openly said, competition is this, I'm competing with other people in a way that helps me and that other person become better. We're competing in skill, but ultimately we're both winning because we're helping each other get better. And I was asked, you don't see yourself as competition to anybody else here? And I was like, no, I'm not in competition with anybody here. We're all wearing the same uniform, and they all laughed at me. And it was 2 truck companies. And I was just sitting there like, what have I gotten myself into? I couldn't believe it, because they were always trying to outdo each other in spite of each other, instead of operating together as a team to better each other. They were trying to outdo each other to keep each other down. And like I said in the chat, this isn't a point system. It's not like fire 1, firefighter 0. Ultimately, you could be the crappiest firefighter on the planet. The fire's going to go out. One way or another, the fire goes out. It just depends on how much destruction you're going to allow it to do. But this isn't a point system. This is an infinite game. How long can I stay in the game? And what is it going to take for me mentally and physically to do that thing?
just for the record, I had the most amount of discipline ever handed out in one sitting for the academy, so I'm
Oh,
with you. So.
Awesome, dude. We need to
that
write
was
that
fun.
book, man. Yeah.
I think I might just do that one of these days. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes down to like that integrity question. And I like to make it as specific as I can. And I share it on the podcast that I host too. And it's at the end of every episode, at the every shift. And at the end of every shift, I ask myself, am I the firefighter I would want on my crew? Am I the guy who's leaving a mess? Am I the guy who's throwing around slurs and swear words all the time? Or am I the guy who's caring for you, helping you out, trying to help you get better, being humble, doing the things that I would want in a crewmate?
Pretty amazing. Any other questions? Comments?
I just wanted to say that goes back for me too, that I would want to say, and that I'm grateful to say that, I want to be the nurse that I want to take care of me when I'm the nurse, when I'm the patient, I'm
Exactly.
grateful.
Yep.
Right. And when I went through my own stuff, I'm glad. And I saw a lot of things and I was like, boy, I am so glad I was never that type of a nurse, that, I was always the nurse that followed through and took care of everyone. But it's, do you want to be the nurse that takes care of you, when you're the patient? Are you the one I want to take care of me? And it all goes back, like you said, to integrity and giving 110%.
Sarah,
Yeah.
did you have something too?
I also want to commend you, Ryan, on your courage, because you're still active duty, aren't you? So you're writing
Yeah.
a book, you have this podcast.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting because I don't divulge names. I don't throw anybody under the bus. I do talk about situations, however, and there's been numerous times where they've tried to discipline me, suspend me, and I put in the chat, like, since the book was written, one guy out of my entire organization, one guy that has reached out was like, hey man, congratulations, way to go. Like, my own fire chief kind of made a snide comment in our last mission, vision, values meeting about me writing a book. And I'm just like, yeah, I can take the hit, but it's crazy to me. It just reinforces the idea that the brotherhood is just not particularly there. And I'm trying to create it among my own community. And honestly, I've found it here. So thank you all for that. Thank you, Sarah.
It's awesome.
It's so cool. I just keep thinking, I know we're probably ending, but I always think of this. I tell my family too, that this is my fight against negativity, or this is my fight. And that is to remind people how awesome they are, like really see people just who they are, the gems, the strengths that they have, the wonderful things they bring to this world, and just be louder than the negativity. And so I think that's what I love, what I'm hearing in what you're doing in your life, and in the way that you can articulate it so beautifully in your book, and in the way that you just show up and really speak it, even though, people who know you, that you work with, will hear it. But you do it with integrity. And so I love that. Thank you so much.
That's the goal.
Like that quote, the first man through the wall gets bloody, but at the end of the day, people don't mind if you do well. They just don't want you to do better than them. And when you do,
it's true.
They take it to like you said in your book at one point, that when, you came in with a degree, and you said that you had a degree, and people started asking you like,
first shift.
You think you're better than us because you have a degree?
Yep.
People don't, they're not nice if you are doing well, if they think you're doing better than them. So it's just something
it's true. That was,
no matter where, if you're a teenage girl in high school, or obviously in the fire service or law enforcement. So, and Bobby knows all about, doing the right thing for the marshals. So it's just something that I think is important that we face head on, like you gentlemen are doing.
it's true. Nobody who's doing better than you will criticize you.
Right. Exactly. So on that note,
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to leave you with a little humor, Ryan. You know the fire triangle, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
You better. For people who don't,
right?
in the fire service, the fire triangle is the basis of fire science. You have heat, you have oxygen, and you have flammable material. When you put those three together, you get a fire. When you take one of those away, the fire goes out. Well, I came to learn that that's actually a square. There's heat, there's oxygen, there's flammable material, and a battalion chief. And if you remove one of those, the fire goes out.
The fire will go out. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. That's good.
all right. Good ending, Todd.